Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
We have a very special guest for you this week. President of General Motors, Mark Reuss, joins us to talk about a number of interesting things, but Corvette records, I think, are front and center.
Corvette records for sure. Obviously, GM has had a rough few quarters, just like every other automaker, but you and I have
business-wise.
Yeah, business-wise, but you and I both have driven recent GM products, recent GM EV products, and we've actually been pleasantly surprised, I think, on both of them.
I definitely have. And I feel like every time I get into an EV or I realize that I'm going to be delivered an EV to test out, I'm like, I'm not bummed out, but I'm just like not excited. And then I drive them. And at first, of course, they were fast and the instant torque was kind of fun. But I really started to notice that I like the driving dynamics of the newer ones. And charging them isn't as much of a pain in the ass as it had been in the past. It's certainly faster, and I know more about how it works. So the learning curve, it's pretty steep, but once you get there, it's just not as bad as I have always thought it would be.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see if, as popular opinion sort of cools somewhat on EVs at the moment, whether these good products get lost in that attitude shift or not. Can GM have the staying power? And obviously they have strategies like making some vehicles with Hyundai, for instance. Can they sort of ride out this momentary dip in the cooling of interest in EVs?
I wonder if the whole industry can ride it. Yes, I've been thinking about this all week.
It's temporary. It's temporary,
but is there anyone who's buying EVs now who isn't an early adopter?
See that? I don't think so.
I don't think so, unless you're someone like we get a chance to test drive these vehicles all the time, but your average consumer maybe can take a test drive at a dealer for 20 minutes or an hour max. So they don't get a chance to see the benefits or learn the way we do. And I wonder if it's going to work out. I've always said I'm sure EVs are going to be the future, but are they really? Is it going to? I also think there's real differentiation because I loved the Dodge Charger EV. I loved the driving dynamics. I loved the styling. But at the end of the day, it gets far less than 200 miles to a charge. So I'm not going to buy that.
At the end of the day, maybe that's your second EV. And how many people are buying two EVs? Not a lot. But maybe the Dodge is your second EV on top of one that does have more range.
Well, the thing is, I've noticed that these GM vehicles have a ton more range than almost everyone else. I can't remember what the EV9 was, and that was, I think, pretty impressive. But
I think it was around 3.
So that's the mark you've got to hit. And
totally,
they're getting that with the Silverado EV, with the Hummer, with the Cadillac, and now recently I've driven the Blazer and the Vistic, and they all had that. I don't think the Vistic was quite as much, but they had these giant 200 kilowatt hour battery packs around there, and that just gives you monstrous range. Yeah,
the Optic has, I think, 302 miles, and I had zero anxiety driving that thing, and I had it for a week, and I drove it all. I would find reasons to drive it, which says a lot, because usually I'm not wanting to charge, not wanting to drive them, because it's a hassle. But
there just seem to be so many more EVs now to choose from. That whole list of GM EVs I've driven in the past couple of months, and I have the new iX to drive from BMW. I have the new Macan coming from Porsche. I'm finally going to drive a Rivian 3 years later coming up. So I have a lot of EVs stacked.
Wow. I mean, did you ever think you'd be here, Matt?
No. Yeah. And I mean, the funny thing is the more I drive them, the more I think maybe I buy one as a family. There's so many more family cars, right? I'm waiting for, and I talked to Jim Farley a couple weeks ago, and he said they're eventually coming out with this 3-row EV, and if they do a Super Duty version of it, then I'm in. Because I want a Super Duty 3-row EV, but they haven't made a Super Duty Super Duty 3-row since, for an ICE vehicle since the Excursion for Ford, and there used to be a Super Duty version of the Suburban, but there's no Super Duty 3-row right now.
So you would consider an EV as the primary family vehicle?
Yeah,
potentially.
I would, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, because you leave it plugged in at
progress.
your house then
Yeah.
when you want to take a trip. I've realized how superchargers or high-speed chargers work, and I know how to find them, so I'm not as worried as I used to be about it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I used to kind of think, okay, most people are going to have a combustion vehicle as their primary car, and then they might have an EV, but they want the stability and safety, emotionally speaking, of something that runs on gasoline.
No, for me, it's flipped.
Interesting.
Right?
Wow.
I will be, in the next couple of years, happy to have an EV as the family, as the grocery getter, but I'm going to have, a fire-breathing muscle car.
That is actually, if we're talking like long term, that's what everybody has said about these fun sports cars that we all like to drive, like, air-cooled Porsches, for instance. We don't need those cars, but we still have them around because they're fun to drive and they have personality and character. And there's the argument that, internal combustion will never completely go away because there will be hobbyists and enthusiasts who maintain the cars at a reduced level as simply weekend fun toys.
I prefer the term enthusiast. I hope no one ever calls me a hobbyist.
Hobbyist, enthusiast.
Young me would have hated it if he knew old me was going to be a hobbyist. All right, let's get to this interview then with Mark Royce, the president of General Motors. I'm really happy to have you, Mark. I'm obviously we're both huge fans of your products. Hannah has actually bought a number of Corvettes, and
This is true.
Wow, that's awesome.
I just got out of the Cadillac Vistic as well, which totally impressed me. And I have to say, more and more, I'm enjoying my time in EVs, which is shocking to anyone who knows me to hear that come out of my mouth. But I wonder what you think about the evolution of the driving capabilities of your electric vehicles.
That's a great question because I'm with you. I just bought a Vistic, and I have 3 kids, and now they're having boyfriends, girlfriends, and spouses, and now a grandchild on the way very shortly. So we have one of our big SUVs, and I just traded in. It was a 21 for a new Vistic, and I have to say, the more I'm in that type of vehicle, the more I enjoy it. And the one I bought has air ride and 4-wheel steer, and it's everything. It's really everything you could imagine. And the fuel economy and the range is right in there, at over 300 on almost all of them. And in fact, all of them. It's really not a compromise anymore. And they're fun to drive, and they're beautifully quiet, and especially the Cadillacs are everything that Cadillacs should be, right?
I mean, even the Chevy Blazer EV, I drove the SS version, and I had a longer trip to make in it, and my wife was a little bit nervous about, doing 400 miles in an electric vehicle, but the car knew where the next supercharger was. It took us literally 12 minutes to charge from 20% to 80%, and it was like such a great we used to call it a sleeper, right? A big station wagon that you don't know is going to be a super fast ride for like an Autobahn journey.
That's right.
So I just more and more often as we get the variety, I'm really impressed by the driving characteristics of these vehicles.
It's great you say that because I would say that, and this has been written as well by other people like yourself, that our vehicle dynamics and our integration is world class. It could be the best in the industry, and I think you see it when we have engineers like the ones that set the times at the ring. They're combined. They're a combined experience level of 36 years, and so that's what they do, and that's all they do. In fact, I'm out here today at the proving grounds. We spend about 5 hours every Friday looking at every single car and every stage of development. And we pick, a target to beat in segment. And so we do that. And so there's no surprise when we launch that we're going to get good reviews. And so we've been doing that for quite a while. But that's really part of the deal. Is there's five or six of us that ride every car with every chief engineer and the development team and the whole integration team out here every week. And so I think it's really a big competitive advantage. So I'm happy you recognize that.
Mark, we just this week ran my review of the Optic, which I also thought was really solid. And I remember when that car first debuted, Hoon Kim was telling me that GM has seen an increase of younger buyers, and by younger we're talking like maybe around 40 or younger than that. Is that who you find buying vehicles like the Optic and the Vistic? Is it typically a younger buyer or not necessarily?
I think if you look at Cadillac as a whole, we're under, this has been a long journey to transform the brand, and the portfolio and the commitment that the company has put behind it, both in people and products, is beginning to tell that story. And I would say that if you look at the demographics of Cadillac, along with Buick, we're seeing an influx of younger people, and it's changing the ages, but it's also conquesting. And so, we're running about 70% conquest on our Cadillac EVs, which that's a great story right there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me because obviously this is a really difficult time in the automotive industry. I know profits have really suffered, but I also read that sales are up in the U.S. for GM and in China. Can you talk about that duality that, it's very challenging out there right now, but also like sales are up?
That's right. Yeah, we've gained share for several quarters now, and we're running over 17% in the U.S., which is a really good, healthy share for us. And then if you look at the utilization of capacity, we're increasing that as we look at different footprints of different cars as we introduce them. So that's a positive thing too. And if you look at that along with China, and you look at the turnaround that we have going on in China, it's really matching supply and demand fundamentally, but also the discipline in pricing. There's people that will raise prices amidst the tariff structure that we're seeing unfold. We're not doing that. We have, at the end of the day, extremely desirable vehicles, and it all gets down to product, and that's both in China and here. And the pricing discipline in China and the commercial piece of that has seen a seismic change. So we've got a new team over there with Steve Hill and Jim Campbell and the rest of the JV teams, and they come from the U.S. And they have a very, very structured, disciplined approach on how we go to market. But we can't have that if we don't have the right cars. And so that's been the real secret to it. From a design, from a performance, Matt, you mentioned it, vehicle dynamics, integration. All those things have to be hitting, with all success to be able to run the pricing and the market share gain. We've got I would say we flutter around the lowest incentive rates in the industry. That's a big deal. GM hasn't done that in a long time. So we're doing that, gaining share, not changing our pricing. So we're priced right. We have highly desirable cars, and we're not fluttering around, high and low pricing, cutting prices, slashing prices, discounting our vehicles because our vehicles are highly desirable. And so it's a good value, whatever the car is, and that's the real secret between both regions.
The vehicles we normally talk about on this podcast are the CT5V Blackwing from Cadillac, and all the Corvettes from Hannah's C3s up to the E-Ray that I love so much. And of course, we want to talk about the records that you guys are breaking at the Nürburgring. But before we get off EVs, I just want to talk a little bit more about the dynamics, because I love the Silverado EV that I drove in terms of the way it actually performed. And I know you've set another record there with, I think, over 1,000 miles of range in a Silverado EV. Plus, you've got a new Trail Boss that has like over 700 horsepower and it rides on 35. So what do you expect from the Silverado platform?
EV-wise, Matt?
Yeah. Because like Hannah said, like right now is a tough time for the industry. So many people have turned anti-EV, but at the same time, you're releasing like the greatest EVs.
Like really, yes.
And people like me, and I'm like you, Mark, I'm a gearhead. I like to smell gasoline. I like the vibes. But I'm being convinced by these products.
Well, that's great to hear. And I think if you look at what we're doing portfolio-wise, this is a growth area for us if we do it right. If we don't do it right, then we're going to be into all the things that happen when you don't have good EVs, or you haven't changed your EVs, or they're too expensive. It goes on and on, right? But if we get the right range, over 300 miles on most products, and we have the right price points, and again, we have real integration. So it's not, it's a great car, number one. Number two, it may happen to be an EV. Philosophically, that's what we've gone after, and it works, and people see it. And once you get into being able to charge in a lot of different places, including your home, that's a big deal. And I read there was 25,000 additional superchargers in the United States year to year. And so these are no longer, finding hen's teeth. They're becoming very, very common. And, my youngest daughter, drives to Indiana for school, drives an EV. And, there are multiple places, like if you're hungry or you have to use the restroom, there's multiple places. And like you said, you went from 20% to 80% on a Vistic in about 10 minutes. That's pretty compelling, right?
Can I ask how this plan with Hyundai to jointly develop vehicles feeds in to the overall strategy? I don't think the vehicles you guys are developing together are for the U.S. Correct me if I'm wrong. But can you explain a little bit about how that is part of the strategy that you guys are running?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we just announced that, obviously, for Central and South America market primarily, but we're also looking for a co-development of an electric commercial van for North America. So it's a mix, Hannah. And these are some things that we're pretty disciplined with capital on a yearly basis, year to year. And so our discipline on capital forces us to make the highest priority portfolio decisions first. But we have some places in our portfolio we'd like to fill in globally. And so that's really the thinking behind it. And so, and they're places that are synergistic with Hyundai. And so, for instance, they really don't have a midsize pickup. And then neither of us have a hybrid propulsion system in a midsize pickup. And so then you look at a compact SUV, there's synergy both ways globally on that, something like that. We have those in North America, but that would be good. And then a car might be a nice, we don't have many cars left. We have a few, but a good sedan would be highly desirable as well. So that's sort of the thinking behind it, if that makes sense.
Are those going to be branded GM vehicles or TBD?
TBD, because the co-development we really haven't talked about yet on who's got the lead on which products. So
Interesting.
So what they're branded, and I don't mean, what we sell will be branded General Motors, but it won't be General Motors. It'll be a brand. So we haven't settled on which GM brand. Hyundai has obviously got a different strategy there. They don't have the multiple brands. They're closely aligned with Kia, obviously, but they don't have the full portfolio of brands that we do, or the distribution setup like we do. So,
do you think that as we move deeper into this world of tariffs and China really being competitive with electric vehicles, will we see more and more of these type of partnerships where two major manufacturers are actually working together?
I think you've seen it, and I can't comment on the success of it, but you've seen it already on two pretty big manufacturers on EVs, right? I think with Ford and VW, that was one. But I think on a relatively high cost of capital situation that the industry and the world is in right now lends itself to some pretty synergistic discussions. But I can't answer. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if that radically changes through the industry, but it certainly is something that maybe accelerates the conversation.
All right. Speaking of acceleration, let's get to these Corvette records because you have been driving the ZR1 and the ZR1X, or your engineers rather have been driving them at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and that's, I think, as big a part of the story as the records themselves. The fact that you're not using professional race car drivers to do 650, 649. I mean, shattering records that probably angers your crosstown rivals just a little bit there. So, tell us about these Corvettes, Mark. And the drivers.
Yeah,
the drivers.
Yeah, the drivers are people that we. In fact, I'm driving with them today out here on some things, some other performance car stuff. But they are at the core wonderful vehicle dynamics engineers that are very good drivers. And so, this story hasn't been told about how deeply committed and what wonderful people they are, but also what wonderful engineers and drivers they are. So I really, Ken Morris started this activity 20 years ago plus with the first Sigma-based CTS vehicles as we were developing the Sigma platform. So he really started the development and validation that we do over there. And so that's been going on a while, and we've been building the performance piece on Cadillac and Corvette over there as well. So
what was that, like the CTS-V, the 2011?
No, it was the original CTS, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Long time ago. And then of course we developed it into the V's there, but the first ones, it's pretty awesome. So it's been going on a long time, and we're there. We have our own workshop there, which is really nice. And so, we finally put the business case together that shipping all the parts and cars over there and renting garage space probably wasn't great from a business standpoint. So we ended up facilitating a pretty nice space where we can keep our parts libraries for development, and then shipping cars. Well, you saw the video probably, but shipping the cars there is hard enough, right? And getting a weather window, and so all that stuff has to be synced up. So it's not an easy trip to set records, but it's a lot easier to go over there during industry pool and develop, which, myself and Ken and the whole team do that. And we did that pretty recently before we went over, and those guys went and set the record. And I couldn't go because Michael Simcoe was retiring, and I wasn't going to miss his retirement party. So I stayed home, but the rest of the team went, and it was just phenomenal. But it wasn't. It was. I want people that have that much. I mean, as I get older, and I appreciate so much the people we have. I really get a lot of satisfaction. Yes, out of the records, it's great, but out of seeing them have their time in the sun doing this, it's really important. And it's all about the people at the end of the day. And these guys are. I'm not sure anybody else has people like this, and doing this.
Who are they? What are the names of the record-setting drivers?
Yeah, Drew Cattell did the 649 in the ZR1X, and then Brian Wallace did the ZR1 at 650, and then Aaron Link did the Z06 at 711. So those are the three people. And
they're just, and Mark, they're just engineers that have come up through. They're studied like electromechanics or engineering or something. They're not like NASCAR and IMSA guys.
Oh no, not at all. They started here, and they're vehicle dynamics, engineers is what they are, which means it's a term. It's an engineering term, but what it really does is these people. These three engineers and people like them in our company anyway know how to integrate the car. So they know how to set the car up. They know how to develop that setup. And they develop it. If you look at the Corvette, we did this the other day for the first time in a long time, is we drove the whole portfolio. So these guys did everything from the base Corvette, which is a sweetheart, right? Z51, LT2, really fun car, all the way through E-Ray, the Z06, the ZR1, the ZR1X. So they had seats doing the vehicle dynamics on all of them. So each one of those cars is completely different, and it's because of them and their knowledge of what the C8 can deliver. And they help architect the car and design the car based on what we want these entries to do. So it starts very early in the development process, and they continually develop those 5 entries. So yeah.
Can we talk about what Cadillac is doing in motorsport in general? And I think these records totally feed into it. Obviously, you have the F1 team coming next year, which is so exciting. I know, obviously, we've talked about this before, but you are a motorsports guy, Mark. It seems from the outside that we are really on a high in terms of just motorsport awareness in the country in general. Are you seeing that? And how is that feeding back into the brand?
We are. It's a great question, Hannah, because if you look at, I was looking at I had a motorsports meeting yesterday, and we looked at the activation that happens at these different races, actually around the world, and then the conversion to sales. And if you go to a race and you go to our stand and you look at the cars that we're racing, and you look at the cars that we're making, there's a direct lineage on almost all of them, whether it's powertrain, chassis, design, whatever that is. You can see it, and people sign up to get more information around buying a car, and then you track the funnel, if you will, from the awareness through whether they register a car or not. So we've got good data around that, and that comes from having great attendance, but also great interest in motorsports across the country and frankly across the world. And F1 is really the pinnacle of that. Over half of the fans in F1, for instance, are female. And so that's a tremendous statement there, because that is hardcore, worldwide stage. And so, but that's just one of them, one of the stats. And we see crowds, whatever venue we're racing in, and we're racing in just about all of them to some extent. We see a great tie-in for the brand, but also, we can make great cars, but if no one knows about them, that's a problem, right? It's hard to sell cars. And so this is a pretty much a core for us to get brand awareness, to get people in our cars, but it's also, as you said, there's a tie-in to what we produce, what we engineer, and what we integrate, and it comes directly from that. Our motorsports center, for instance, in Charlotte, North Carolina, is set up to really develop all of our motorsports vehicles, powertrains, teams with Pontiac here, and then our also core engineering of our vehicles here in Detroit. So it's really quite wonderful. And then, of course, we are now spreading that to Indiana and then into Silverstone in the UK. So there's it's quite a wonderful footprint, and a lot of people want to come to work for us because of it too.
I have to say that, so we saw you, Hannah and I both saw you at Le Mans at the Cadillac, at the Cadillac station
Hospitality,
there.
yeah.
And watching that race, that was honestly one of the best nights of my life, because you're there and Gil West was there and Dario Franchitti was there, and we're just all hanging out. Like the guys from Multimatic and the guys from Singer watching this race through the night was just unbelievable. And the Cadillac sounded better than any of the cars out there. I just loved it so much. Next year, that's the hypercar entry, of course. Next year, Ford is entering that, and I've always wondered, do you ever see Jim Farley around at these things? How competitive are you guys? Do you guys not talk to each other? Does he get super mad if you break his Mustang GTD Nürburgring record?
Well, you saw what he wrote, so I don't think that was mad or.
What did he write, Mark? I didn't see it. I missed it.
He said, "Congratulations to the Corvette team. Game on."
Ooh.
That's
there
good.
You go.
That's good.
That's good.
That's good, healthy competition.
That's good, right? That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's all about, right? So, no, of course not. We saw each other at Rolex to kick off the race season this year. I see Bill Ford at quite a few races too, so that's nice, and it's fun because it's not like that. It's, for instance, I chair the this is not widely known, but I chair the the Henry Ford Museum board here in Detroit. And so, I'm pretty active in that, and I love the place. And that's our museum, and so I'm honored to do that. And it's got a lot of Ford involvement, and so it's a look. We compete every day in sales and with our companies, but no, it's a small world. So yeah.
Now I gotta ask, we're going, of course, into Monterey Car Week next week. And I know Cadillac will be there. I hear they're showing something of interest. What can you tell us about what we're going to see next week?
Well, it's Cadillac and Chevrolet. So you'll see some things that are pretty remarkable. In
yes,
fact,
I misspoke. Chevrolet, really. This is the point. Maybe we can edit that out. But Chevrolet.
Yeah. Yeah. Chevrolet will show a nod to the future, and the nod will be not unlike what we did with Celestiq. If you remember, the Celestiq for Cadillac was actually done before the rest of the vehicle portfolio you see today. The reason why we did it was to precisely define what the design language was going to be for Cadillac as we transformed the brand. And so a lot of that Celestiq, as you see, shows up in everything from Optic to Vistic to Lyric to even the ICE, the IQ, the EV IQ. And then you see it in starting to show up in our ICE products for Cadillac too. So there's a consistency of brand. And so what you'll see, I think, at Pebble Beach is a really remarkable set of cars that hint to the design language that you'll see on some of the incredible cars at Chevrolet.
A set.
I'm very much
a set of cars. This is good.
I'm very much looking forward.
Yes. Two future cars. Good. That's what we got out of them from Chevy.
Well, two.
I like where this is going.
Yeah, two concepts that will really have a nod to the future. I think you'll be blown away. Yeah.
Mark, can I ask about, we've talked to other, obviously, GM executives and engineers on this program who kind of shot down the idea of a Corvette SUV, but the brand is strong enough, I think you'd probably agree, to stand on its own. And other, Lamborghini and Porsche and other sports car brands have done so well with SUVs, Ferrari. Why not make a Corvette SUV? It seems like people would buy it.
Yeah, it's hard to say that people would buy it, to be honest. I know there's interest in it, but there's also interest in CTSV wagons, right?
Oh, yes. With sticks.
So, right, with sticks. And those are, I love that stuff. I do. I just, it's hard because Corvette is America's sports car, and it's really hard to make a derivative of that, at least right now, that fits that. And so I think there's much more to go on the C8 platform in terms of design and creating a new car. And so I think that's really good. And I just, I don't want to lose what we have in terms of a pure American sports car on it for now. And I never say never, but it's pretty tough, because we have things like CTSVs, right, that are sedans that are killer, right? And we have now the V Lyrics, right, and the V Optics that are extremely fun to drive, right? And so we've got some pretty great, more utility-based performance vehicles that I think are great choices as well. But for now, electrified with the ZR1X and the E-Ray is a pretty awesome deal that you don't have to plug in. And then I'd say, we just announced we're putting a new V8 into Tonawanda. And so, there's going to be some great powertrains. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, that's a good way to end it. We'll look forward to seeing those in the future. Mark Royce, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for building those things.
Thanks for having me on the show, and always wonderful to see you both.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
His answer on motorsports is the best one that we've gotten.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what I like about Mark? He is plain spoken. And he's diplomatic. He's not going to tell us what this cool, world debut next week is. He knows his rules, but he is plain spoken.
I'm looking forward to it. There's going to be so many cool things at Monterey. You're so lucky. When are you actually going to go?
I will be driving up to Monterey next Wednesday. I'll be driving in Mercedes SL Maybach edition. Yes.
So the SL, I guess that's a two-door convertible, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'll be looking forward to seeing how that goes. But yeah, going up Wednesday, and there are so many debuts happening. I know you've sent a few that you're excited about, Matt.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about I always like the kind of aftermarket SEMA show winners, and Ring Brothers is going to show an Aston Martin that I'm super pumped on.
That's going to be very cool. That's going to be very cool.
SL stands for Sport Light, right?
Yes.
That's the idea. Is it, you think, still that?
No.
No.
I don't think so. I drove the new modern SL that they launched, I think 2023, and this is the Maybach version, which is going to be heavier. Surely it's going to be heavier, but we don't care. It's going to be awesome.
Well, last time you drove to Monterey, you were in the Lamborghini Revuelto.
Yeah, that was a steep, stiff kick in the pants with a ticket on that.
Hopefully, like a $400 ticket, plus you hired a lawyer. Plus, you got points.
The lawyer couldn't even get me off. He didn't get it reduced. He was kind of worthless in the end, actually. That was a mistake. I know. So please, I'm going to be on my best behavior on next Wednesday. I'm going to be just driving like a grandma.
So you go Wednesday. What are the things you're most looking forward to? Because it's a whole week of events? You stay until Monday, Tuesday? What?
You know what? I may drive back on Sunday right after the concours, or Monday morning. It kind of depends on how Sunday goes and how tired and sunburned and hungover I am after that. There's the Motorlux Gala that Haggerty throws on Wednesday night, which will be really cool, and which anyone who saw my stained glass piece on this really cool fabricator who's putting stained glass windows in air-cooled 911s, he will be showing some of his art at the Motorlux Gala. So I'm excited about that Wednesday night. And then the Broad Arrow auction is also Wednesday night. That's a Haggerty event. And then throughout the week, I actually am very excited to go to the RM auctions, the Good and Christie's auctions, just because we love talking about what cars we'd buy, what's the market doing. So I'm really excited about that. Of course, the Quail on Friday is where all of the news and the debuts will be happening. I am very excited. Now, I admit I've seen what Chevrolet will be showing on Friday, and I am excited for the world to see. I can't say what it is because it's under embargo, but I'm excited to see that car in real life. And that day will be full of interviews with executives, kind of like our conversation with Mark.
True. I have an interview on that day with the CEO of Lamborghini and an interview with the CEO of Bentley.
Adrian.
But I'm going to be back here in New York in the studio, and they're going to be live via satellite on my show. So
well, that's better than nothing. And actually, we have Sandra Button, the chairman of Pebble Beach Concours, coming on TV today to talk with Carol and Jess. So everyone's looking forward to it. I think it'll be a great time. I'm also going to be driving in the Pebble Beach Tour, which will be really fun, which is on Thursday morning. And that's when all of the show cars have to drive an actual route down the highway to sort of prove that they're roadworthy, that they can actually drive.
All right.
So
I'm looking forward to it, and you and I will talk with Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford from Pebble Beach. That'll be our Hot Pursuit edition for next week. So have a fantastic weekend and week.
Thank you, Matt.
And
you too.
I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Can't wait.
I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.